what we got, eh? Look at this. Here's the beastie. And box of cables, I presume. Let's see what's in here. So the power cable, cigarette lighter socket cable, a DC cable, and that'll be the solar panel connection cable for connecting solar panels to it. And a fairly juicy instruction book. So this is an EcoFlow Delta Max 2000, and EcoFlow have sent it to me to put it through its paces and see what it can do and give you guys a good demonstration of it. I'm going to get it set up and I'm going to fully charge it. I've literally just opened the box, as you've seen. I'll fully charge it up, and while it's charging I'll give you a bit of a backstory about why they sent it to me and how I plan to use it. And then when it's fully charged, we'll get in and actually plug some things in and see how it works. Alright, so what I'm gathering from this is that it's at 31% charge, and we've got 1136 watts going into it at the moment, nothing coming out, and it's going to take about an hour to reach full charge. I suppose you can probably hear that, it's the fan running. It's just the display's just turned off and the fans come on, which I presume is just to cool it down while it's charging. So why has EcoFlow sent me this portable power station? Well, to explain that I need to go back a bit and give you a little bit of a backstory. I've been thinking a lot about our Landcruiser 80 series lately. Now, this car's been in our family for about 24 years now. We first got it in 1998, and it's taken us everywhere. We've done, you know, something like 350,000 kilometres in it. It's taken us on our big lap around Australia, and heaps of other expeditions to every corner of the country before and since then. And it really is like a part of the family. It's like, you know, any thoughts I've ever had about upgrading it to something else, sort of moving it aside, replacing it with someone else, has just been knocked on the head by the family. It's like, no, not going to happen. It's like, Dad, you can't sell the Landcruiser. Okay, all right, that's fine. I love it, so it's no big deal. But the reality is, as times change, you know, the girls are growing up, they're becoming adults, they're getting out and having their own lives. So its role in our family as a family touring vehicle is kind of coming to an end. As sad as that is, it's just the reality of it. And so it's time to sort of have another fresh look at it and think, now what's its future going to be? The reality is, trips from here on, for the most part, will be either me by myself, or me and Jen, or me with a mate or whatever. So I've been thinking about how can I sort of take a fresh look at the setup of the Landcruiser, and I mean, there's a lot of things that just need fixing and repairing and working on anyway. The thing's done, you know, over 420,000 kilometres, hard kilometres. It's done plenty of work. So I've been thinking a lot about what can I do to it? How can I kind of give it a big refresh and really convert it into that two-person tourer that I think is going to be its realistic life for the years ahead. Now, one of the other challenges I've got here is that the GVM of the 80 series is not great. 2,960 kilos or thereabouts is the GVM for the vehicle, and as it is right now with almost nothing in it, it's not far off that. Now, I haven't put it on the scales for a while, but I did go down to a rubbish transfer station about last year when we were doing lots of moving around in the garage, and I had it piled up with rubbish. Not heavy stuff, not bricks or concrete or anything like that, just general household rubbish. And I drove in on the scales on the way in, and it was dead on 2,940 kilos. I'm thinking, this is crazy. I mean, the car is virtually empty. I'm sure I didn't have more than a couple of 100 kilos of junk in there. So is it actually possible to build an 80 series that is a really optimal two-person tourer and keep it under the GVM? That's my mission, if you like. A couple of other goals I've got. I want it to be a very long range and completely self-sufficient. So my sort of idea is that Jen and I could jump in it with a tank of juice and just drive 1,000 kilometers pretty much non-stop, completely self-sufficient. We've got fuel, we've got water, we've got food, we've got our inbuilt accommodation, whatever that is, and we can go anywhere, pull up, stop and camp and be there. So completely independent of anything else. Power, and water and toilet and shower and all that sort of stuff. So that's the other part of the mission that I've got here. Keep it on the GVM, completely self-sufficient and very comfortable and capable two-person tourer. One of the things obviously I'm going to be looking at doing is upgrading the power system in the whole vehicle. Now power systems have come a long way. In the 20 odd years that we've had this vehicle, we've got a second battery in it right now. It's just a deep cycle lead acid battery, and that it basically runs to the back of the vehicle, connects in to the drawers that I've got in the back. We've got a fuse box in there. We've got a switch panel in there with a few USB and cigarette lighter sockets and some switches. It's pretty basic. It does the job. I installed that about sort of 3 or 4 years ago, and it works okay. But it's not brilliant. Lead acid batteries are heavy, and compared to newer lithium batteries, they're pretty inefficient. So obviously, one of the things I definitely want to do is upgrade all that. Now, as I've been thinking about this and taking notes and researching, I've been weighing up. There's really two options. The first option is that I can install a lithium battery or multiple lithium batteries and a battery manager and an inverter and fuse box and battery charger system, and I can, there's all that technology is there. It's very mature these days, and there's some fantastic setups you see in vehicles. I've been watching, following Andrew St. Pierre White and his troopy build.
So 2 of them in parallel together, of course, will be sufficient to feed the 3 kilowatt inverter.
He does great work putting all these incredible systems into his troopies, and I look and I think, wow, that's awesome. I'd love that. But there's a couple of problems. I mean, one of them, there's a lot of weight there. There's a lot of gear, and it sort of feels a little bit like overkill for really ultimately what it needs to do. It's quite expensive. There's you're talking about thousands of dollars worth of components here. And realistically, because you were talking about hard wiring in 240 volts, you've got to get an electrician involved. So the whole system really has to be installed professionally by someone who really knows what they're doing. Now all that's fine, and that could very well be a solution I might go with down the track. But the alternative that I had been thinking about was, what about something like this with these completely self-contained units, which are a modern lithium battery system that's got all the electronics and the management and charging and everything, and all the plugs and sockets and everything all built in. It's essentially the same basic idea of building it all into the car, but just building it into a box. And I think it's a great idea. Now, battery boxes are not new. We've had 3 or 4 of them over the last 20, 30 years, and they've just kind of evolved over time. But essentially, they've just been a box with a big lead acid battery in it, and a bunch of sockets, bolted to the outside. Fundamentally, that's what they've been, and they've been pretty basic. Today we've got these devices, portable power stations they call them, which are really an evolution of that portable battery box idea. They're way more technically advanced. Literally got computers inside that manage the power management of the battery, and they've come so far that the question I've had is this potentially the auxiliary power system for my 4-wheel drive for the Project 80 build? Could this be the better alternative to actually installing something within the vehicle? One advantage is that I don't need to get anything installed by anybody else. It's literally a self-contained box. It's got 240 volt outlets on the back of it. It can do everything that I needed to do in a box. So that's something. Potentially there's less weight there. I don't know for certain. It might be 5 or 10 kilos one way or the other. It's probably not a dramatic difference, but potentially it's less weight. And another factor that I really love is the fact that I can take it out of the Landcruiser and use it in the house. If I build a whole lithium battery system into the car, fantastic, but it's stuck in the car. It's permanently there. A system like this, I can actually I can put it in the car, go on a trip, get home, take it out of the car and use it in the house. Now, one of the things I'm doing in the house here, we're renovating this house, and one of the things I'm doing is I'm turning the cupboard underneath our stairs into like a technology hub for the house. And I've basically rerouted our NBN cable into there. I've installed Wi-Fi hotspots around the house, and they all route back to there. And one of the next projects I'm going to do is install CCTV cameras right around the house, and they'll all route back into there, so there'll be a computer in there as well. So pretty much all of the technology that runs the house is centralized into that room. And what I can do with a box like this EcoFlow, is I can actually sort of have it live in that room and it can be the backup power supply for all that technology. So I have it plugged into the mains, and then everything in the room is plugged into the EcoFlow Delta box. And if the mains goes down, we have a blackout or a power failure, and just literally in the last couple of weeks on the news, we've been hearing a lot about interruptions to power.
And narrowly avoided widespread blackouts overnight, but entire suburbs of Sydney were plunged into darkness when the power went out. Both states have been in panic mode after the Australian energy market operator warned of potential load shedding. The cold weather, high energy prices and planned maintenance are being blamed for this crisis. But just 2 weeks into winter, is this just the beginning of East Coast power pain?
The key thing here is that there are a number of gas generators that are and were able to operate under that market price cap, but there are some that, if they'd have turned on at those prices, would have actually lost money.
By mounting this box in that room, if we do have a power failure, the cameras keep going, the Wi-Fi keeps working, the NBN keeps going, unless it's not coming from the actual source, but assuming that it's still coming from the source, that keeps working. And I can have a couple of extension cords there, so I can run a cable out to our chest freezer, which is just in the laundry right next door. I can run one upstairs into the kitchen and keep the fridge going. So I'm getting a lot more value from a product like this than I would if I spent thousands of dollars installing a whole lithium system in the car. Because the reality is, most of the time I'm not on road trips. Most of the time I'm at home. So rather than having it sort of just sitting idle most of the time in the car, I can basically have it installed in the house, and then when I go on a trip, unhook it, pick it up, put it in the car. I'll set it up in the car in some way that's sort of got a semi-permanent mounting system. It's bolted in something. It'll be one of the future videos that we'll do, and I can take it with me. So that's my thinking, that why this actually might be a better solution than the installed lithium system. Now, it turned out that I was literally in the process of thinking about all this and taking copious notes about I might do this, might do that, and all the other aspects of the car that I'll talk to you more about in future videos. And I got contacted by EcoFlow, and they said, we've got a new model coming out. There's actually the Delta Pro is the one they talked to me about, which is actually the big brother of this one, quite a lot bigger than this one. They said, these are great for RVs and caravans and houses as well. Can we send you one and can you trial it out? And obviously I thought, yeah, of course, fantastic. I'd love to have a look at it. But it was literally on my mind at that time as a potential, something like this as a potential option for the 80 series anyway. So I actually said to them, look, as much as I'd love the big unit, it's fantastic. It's about 300 amp hours of power, which is the equivalent of about 3 of the normal sort of lithium batteries you put in your vehicle. It's too big. It's too big for the 80 series project. They weigh about 48 kilos, and it's quite a big, substantial box. And it'd be fine if you had an RV or a caravan and you weren't sort of particularly worried about the extra 20 or 30 kilos. That'd be fine. But for my project, because I'm trying to keep under that GVM, I figured it was more important to go down one. So I said to the guys, look, thank you very much, but can you send me the smaller one, which is about half the weight? They're about 22, 23 kilos. And realistically, we're talking how many? It's 100 and, let me look it up, I've got my notes here. It's 168 amp hours is this what this unit is here. Now that's the equivalent of sort of more than 1.5 typical 100 amp hour lithium batteries that you'd have in your car. So that's a lot, and realistically that should be plenty for the project that we're working on here. Now, I also talked to EcoFlow about their solar panels, because they've got several in the range going up to the biggest one, which is about 400 watts. And they were happy to send me a solar panel as well, which is really what we need for this sort of system. You need to be able to recharge it. Now, you can recharge it from the mains here like this. You can recharge it in the car while you're driving along, while the engine's running. Obviously, that's what we do while we're actually traveling along. But when you get to camp and you're going to stop there for a couple of days, you want to keep the battery topped up in this. So that's where the solar panel comes into its own. Now, I haven't unpacked these solar panels yet, so we're going to see them together for the first time. Okay. This is quite big, isn't it? Look at that. So it's like a rigid fiberglass material. Looks like it'd be quite heavy duty, as in, you know, tough, which it needs to be really, because, you know, when we go on road trips we tackle some pretty savage roads, and yeah, so things get knocked around a fair bit. Now it is waterproof, IP68. You can leave it out in the weather, it's not going to affect it, so that's a good thing. Let's see what's in here. Okay, so yeah, these are the cables obviously, and the actual Delta unit came with its own cable, so these connect to the panel, and then that plugs into the Delta unit there. So I'll give you all a full demonstration of this, but at this stage it's just really an unboxing. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a quick look and plug a few things and see how it works. And then in the next video I'll take it out and we'll actually give it a proper test and you know, see that in the real world. Yeah, first impressions are that it's very nice quality. Everything feels really well finished. You know, they're not a cheap unit. They're not you know, they're not a bottom dollar unit. They are built to a standard, and you can really see that in the build quality of the whole thing. So yeah, very impressive. Right guys, as you can see on the display in the front there, the Delta Max 2000 is fully charged now. Yeah, it took about a bit over an hour I suppose to get to full charge. Now she's ready to rock and roll. So the next step is to plug some devices and gadgets in and actually see how it works. Now you'll see that each of the panels, like this is the USB panel here, and you'll see it's got a power on and power off button. And each of the panels are the same thing. If I flip it around to the back, the 240 volt section has got its own power on, power off, and the 12 volt, that's the cigarette lighter socket. It's got power on, power off as well. And this is the input voltage here. So that's your 240 volt in, that's your solar or 12 volts from the car in. And that's a reset button over there. So yeah, if you're charging it in the car, you're going to use this cable here. It's going to go into that port there, and it's going to go into your cigarette lighter socket. And if you're charging it from solar, same input port, and these sockets go into the solar panel. Or in my case, I'll probably use an extension cable so I can get the solar panels further away, you know, 10 meters away or so. But that's basically how it works. So let's flip it around. Well, actually, we'll do some 240 volt stuff first. You can close that, we don't need that. Actually, no, let's start with 12 volts because we've got the panel open here. So here's a 12 volt gadget. This is an old spotlight that I've used off and on. So we'll plug that in there. Hey presto, that works. So that's good. What else have we got? Let's try some 240 volts. So something that people often use. Actually, I'll turn that off because I don't need to keep flattening it any more than we need to. Yeah, so this is a battery charger for my, you know, power tools. We can plug that in there. You can see that's going now. That's charging. See the lights flashing on the top there. So far, it's nice and quiet. The fan hasn't come on this, which is nice. What else have we got? Let's get the kettle going. Have a cup of coffee. Plug that in there. Flip the kettle on there. Alright. Now I will actually show you the display in the front here. I'll just use the GoPro. Alright, so I've set up the GoPro on the other side so you can see, because everything's happening on both sides, you can actually, I can cut to this shot here, you can see what's going on there. Now what else can we get going here? Let's get a few gadgets going on this side. So I'm going to plug this into the USB section here. So this is my lamp, something we might have around camp. We'll get that charging in the USB section, and you can see there, blue lights flashing. You can see that hopefully. Yep, that's charging. And drone batteries. So I've been out flying the drone all day, getting some epic shots. If I come back at the end of the day, recharge the batteries. They run on 240 volts, so we'll get that going there. Green light's on there. Probably start with this one. There it goes. So you can see on the display here, it's telling us that at the moment, the current power usage, it would last about 54 minutes. Not bad when you think the kettle would be using the absolute mother load of that power, and that's only going to run for a few minutes. So once the kettle goes off, we'll see how that will change. We've still got 98% of our power left, and we're drawing 2030 watts. Now my iPad needs charging, so let's get that plugged in. Now this is going to go into the USB-C socket. USB-C sockets are 100 watts, so they'll charge a laptop or other sort of high-powered USB-C devices. And yep, that's charging. It's actually already at 100%, so it's keeping it topped up. What else we got? Now, this is something I'm very interested to try out. This is an induction cooktop, which I picked up. Basically, by having this unit in the car, I can eliminate gas. I won't need a gas stove, and I won't need to take any gas cartridges or any gas bottles. So this is something I'm going to try. I've never used one of these before. It's an induction cooker. It doesn't actually get hot. It uses magnetic energy to heat up the pan, which then heats up the food. Surprisingly affordable, these things. This was, I think, about $70. Not very much. So that's a trial for me. I've always used gas cookers when I've been camping. This is something new. But if you're going to have a good electrical setup, you may as well make the full use of it. And in the interest of keeping the overall weight of everything down, there's no point in taking a gas stove and gas bottles and things like that if I can do it all with this. Now this doesn't weigh very much, a couple of kilos, so overall that's a win. So, okay, so that's boiled. I could make a coffee if I had a cup, but I don't. So we'll get this plugged in. Now let's see. So now that the kettle stopped, it's saying we've got 13 hours of juice left at the current rate. Still at 97%. I only really used about 1% of the battery's capacity to boil the kettle. And there's enough water in there, it's about half full. Enough there for at least 2 or 3 cups of coffee. So pretty good, you get up in the morning, you're going to have a couple of coffees, you're going to cook some breakfast. So let's get the induction cooker going. I might just move this all out the way. So we'll plug that in. Now, as I said, I've never used one of these before, so I'm flying blind here, but how hard can it be? So it's off. Let's turn it on, and temperature. Alright, so I've come prepared. I've got a burger to cook, and I've got a pan. I'll put it on there and see what happens. Alright, it's making a noise. And what's happening on the back there with the power? Okay, yeah, we're drawing some power. Fans come on. Oh yeah, it's getting hot. Okay, so we'll let that warm up for a sec. So it's obviously got the capacity to run the induction cooker. Still at 96%. Probably only take about, I don't know, 8 or 10 minutes to cook a burger. Still got everything else is charging here. Spotlight still works. So this is probably typical. I'm going to go out next week, as I said before, and I'm actually going to go out and camp overnight and test everything in the real world and sort of see how it works. But this is typical. You've got some things plugged in all the time. You probably wouldn't run the kettle and the induction cooker at the same time, just because that's actually getting really hot. Just because they're both very intense devices. There we go, look at that. Should have bought some butter, but I forgot, so anyway, we'll crap without it. Might turn that down a bit. Doesn't need to be super hot. So I think I'm adjusting the actual amount of watts of power here. So I've got it down at 120. It was on 240 when it came on, which I think is full power. Yeah, it's dropped down the power usage a lot. So, I mean, realistically, I wouldn't usually use full heat on that anyway. So, Alright, let that cook away. Now, once that's finished, I want to go and test the granddaddy of all camping tools. Not something you ever see me camping with, but plenty of people do. And that's the microwave oven. And now this is probably more relevant if you've got a camper or a small caravan or whatever, and you want to use this as your off-grid power supply. Then a microwave is a pretty practical thing to use. I'm not a massive fan of them myself, but everyone is, so you know, you've got to go with what people actually want to use. Alright, that's still cooking there, so that's good. So I'll get that ready to go. I won't actually use it because I just think that you don't want to, probably want to have more than one large device running at the same time. Just because obviously if you overload it, it will trip out, and then you're not running anything, are you? So we'll give that a minute. It's cooking nicely there. Like my burgers, fairly underdone. Alright, so our burger's cooking. We're still at 92%. That's pretty good, you know. We've still got 9 hours of capacity based on everything that's currently running, which is the induction cooker, the lamp is charging, the battery for the drill is charging, drone batteries are charging. We've got a spotlight on here, and you know, we've used less than 10% of the power of this. So if you imagine you get up in the morning, you cook breakfast, you boil the kettle a couple of times, you cook for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. You know, you might use 20% of the whole capacity, but I can imagine that, you know, with the solar panels or you know, driving for a couple of hours in the day, I would expect you will easily replenish that. And so you're really only using, you know, the top part of the power, unless you're having lights running all night. Or I suppose your fridge, that'll be drawing a fairly constant charge. That's something we'll test a bit more down the track. So yeah, 92% still. We're only drawing 195 watts at the moment. Obviously this is on a fairly low setting, which is good. Low and slow is the way to go. Put our cheese on there. We like to melt the cheese over the burger. So while that burger's cooking, I'll just tell you a couple of other things about this EcoFlow Delta Max. You can get expansion batteries, which are basically the same box, but without all the smarts in it. And they plug into the side here. There's two outlets here, or two inputs I should say. So you can add 2 expansion batteries to this unit, and you can expand it to over 500 amp hours, which is a massive amount of power. Now obviously that's not going to work in a kind of the Landcruiser 4-wheel-drive situation, but if I wanted to scale up the power in the house and have, you know, the capacity to run the fridge and freezer for a lot longer time, then that's an easy way to do it. You don't actually have to buy complete, you know, full units. The other thing that you can look at is they've got what they call a smart generator, and it's a basic petrol generator that is in a similar footprint to this, and it's designed to work with this system so that you can plug it in. Now the scenario where you would use that is if you were at like a base camp and you had you know, limited solar charging capacity. Maybe it's the middle of winter and you know solar isn't a great option. So you can run a generator and top it up, and that's going to give you, you know, the ability. Maybe you run it a few hours a day to replenish the battery. So that's another option you can look at as well. There's also an app that comes with it, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, so the app works via Wi-Fi, and if you imagine when this is plugged in at home here and on the home Wi-Fi network, I'll actually be able to see this over the internet. I'll actually be able to see at any time what the system's doing, how much charge it's got. At the moment I can see, basically I'm seeing the same information that I'm seeing on here. It's got, actually what am I seeing here? Yes, it's just caught up now. I've got 10 hours 52 minutes of power remaining. It's using 177 watts of output. I can actually turn off and on the various panels, just the same as I can on here. So it's quite a handy app. The app also works when you're not on the internet. So this will create its own Wi-Fi connection. So you're out camping, you're in the middle of nowhere, you know, no internet whatsoever. this creates its own Wi-Fi connection, and you can directly connect to it, so you can still see when you're at camp, you know, what the status of your Delta Max is. So that's pretty cool. That took me a few minutes to set up. It was pretty straightforward. Alright guys, so we're nearly there. The burger's probably nearly ready now. We've still got 89% of power left, and we could keep going like this for over an hour, based on the juices left in the Delta box here, which is pretty amazing. I'm pretty impressed by that. We'll just give that a couple more minutes because it's quite a thick burger, and then we'll turn that off and we'll crank up the microwave and see how that works. Alright, I'm going to turn that off now, and let's see if it's cooked. Can't see it, can you? How's that? Perfect. Look at that. Woohoo! Okay. Alright, let's make sure we got nothing in there. Yep, that's good. Let's crank this up. Give that a few minutes. Alright, so that's now drawing about 1,000, bit over 1,000 watts. I think the glass platter is not sitting down properly, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's pretty good. It's easily coping with that. We're still at 88%. So if you're into microwaves on your in your caravan or in your RV, then that seems to work as well. Should we try to overload it and see what happens? I'll give that a couple more minutes. Let's put the kettle on and see what happens, eh? Hope I don't blow anything out. No, that doesn't work. Alright, I unplugged it, that's why. Alright, hopefully we don't damage anything here. Kettle's on. Fans cranked up on the Delta. We're at 2,500 watts of draw. Kettle and the microwave running all at the same time, so that's pretty good. Now, as I understand it, the Delta Max is capable of a 3,000 watt surge, so we're still 500 watts away from that. So maybe you can run two devices, you know, two high use 240 volt devices at the same time. I mean, it's reducing the life of the charge down to 36 minutes at our current draw. But still, how often would you have two big devices running for more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time? So that's good. I'm pretty impressed by that. Flick that off, bang, it drops back down to about 1,000 again. I actually heard the microwave speed up then, so obviously that adjusts itself to the power it's got available. But it kept running, and the Delta didn't trip out, so that's pretty impressive. So I suppose if you had a kettle and a toaster going at the same time, that's a pretty typical thing that people would do. Or maybe you could even be running your induction cooktop and still boil the kettle without overloading it. So it seems like you can basically run two high-powered 240 volt devices at the same time. So we'll stop that. I'm pretty impressed by that. So after all that, we're down to almost no power usage now. We've still got 84% left. So that's a pretty good realistic situation where you're out camping, you're making breakfast, and you're using various different devices. It's going to be interesting to see it out in the real world when I go camping next week. Alright guys, that's it for this first video. I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview and show you how it works, and really for my own benefit, just to sort of get a sense of how things work. Next week will be the true test, and I'll get out there and try it in the real world, doing real things that people are likely to use this for, and I will bring you along with me and get a video out of that as well. Meanwhile, if you're keen to find out pricing and where to buy it and so on, I'll put some links under this video. You can go and check that out, and see if you think it's an investment in your own rig, whatever that is. There are smaller and larger units available. As I said, the Delta Pro is the bigger unit, which if you might be interested if you're looking at van or RV kind of situation, and they have smaller ones as well, if you don't sort of need the capacity of the unit like this. Either way, go and check it out. Links are underneath this video. And thanks for joining me. Please give this video a like, and please leave comments below if you've got any questions or comments that you want me to look at and answer in upcoming videos. Then add them down below there. And I look forward to seeing you in another video very soon.